Welcome to Mobile Home Friend YouTube channel, your go-to resource for everything manufactured housing.
Welcome to another deep dive from Mobile Home Friend. Today we are looking at something that is, well, it's a homeowner's nightmare, mobile home floor rot.
And everything we're about to cover is based on our latest research over at mobilehomefriend.com.
Yeah, let's just jump right into the deep end here. This quote from Chuck O'Dell, man, it really says it all. This guy has spent 20 years crawling under mobile homes, and trust me, he is not being dramatic. No, not at all. When he says your floor feels like a trampoline, that's not just a funny description. It's an emergency siren. You are one bad step away from getting personally acquainted with the ground under your house.
Right, and that leaves us to this, which is probably the most important thing to get your head around. This isn't about fixing a squeaky board or a loose piece of vinyl. We are talking about a full-blown structural failure.
For sure. And listen, slapping a piece of plywood over that soft spot, that's not a fix. It's a booby trap waiting to happen. This is about engineering, it's about safety, and it's about the actual value of your home.
Okay, so before you can even think about fixing the damage, you have to become a detective. You've got to find out where the water is coming from and stop it. Because if you don't, any repair you do is just a bandage on a much bigger problem.
Exactly. So let's get into it. Let's look at the 3 silent killers of mobile home floors.
All right, cause number 1. This is one that a lot of people they don't even consider it. The moisture is coming from the ground itself.
Yeah, it sounds weird, right? But there's supposed to be this protective sheet under your home, and when that thing fails, the ground wages this slow, silent war on your floor from underneath.
So this protective layer is called a vapor barrier, or a lot of folks call it the belly wrap. And really, it's just a big sheet of plastic, but don't let that fool you. It is absolutely critical. And when it gets a tear in it, maybe from an animal or just from getting old and brittle, it's game over. All that moisture from the ground just gets sucked up into your insulation, and now you have a wet, soggy sponge pressed against the bottom of your wood subfloor day in, day out. It is the definition of a slow death for your floor. Okay, moving on to the second big one, and this one is a major culprit. Those little, nagging plumbing leaks inside the house.
Oh, these are the worst because they're so sneaky. That tiny little drip, drip, drip from under the kitchen sink, or a wax ring on the toilet that's just not quite sealed. You don't see it, you don't hear it, but it is doing massive damage.
And here's why those little drips are so destructive. You have to understand what particle board really is. It's just sawdust and glue pressed together. So the second it gets wet, it acts like a sponge, just wicking that moisture out in all directions. I'm not kidding. I saw this on a project once. A tiny leak from a bathtub drain completely rotted out the floor 10 feet away in the hallway. The water just traveled through that particle board. That's why checking your pipes every year isn't just a suggestion, it's a must-do.
And that brings us to our third, and honestly, probably the most common cause of floor rot, a leaky roof.
Right. And water is the ultimate ninja. It gets in and travels in ways you would never, ever expect. The scary part is, by the time you feel that damp spot on your carpet, the damage to the wood underneath is already done, and it's probably really bad. Yeah, check this out. It shows exactly how it happens. The water doesn't just drip from the ceiling onto the floor. No, it's way sneakier. It'll run along the ceiling, find a wall, and then trickle down inside the wall cavity.
And then, where does it end up? It pools at the very bottom, right where the wall meets the floor, and it just sits there, silently eating away at the edge of your subfloor. That is why I always tell people, if you have a soft spot on your floor, the first thing you do is look up.
Okay, so we know where the water's coming from, but why are these floors so incredibly weak to begin with? Why does a little water cause a total catastrophe?
You know, that is the million-dollar question. And the answer really comes down to a single fundamental mistake in how they were originally designed.
This right here is the whole story. The problem is particle board. It's the original sin of mobile home construction. It's literally just sawdust and glue. And the second it gets wet, it turns back into mush. All its strength is gone. Poof. And the solution is plywood. Look at the difference. It's actual layers of wood glued together in opposite directions. It can get wet, it can dry out, and it stays strong. That fancy term, modulus of elasticity, just means it's stiff and doesn't bend easily. Let's be honest, they used particle board to save a few bucks, and it was a choice that was guaranteed to fail over time.
And then you've got this number. 24 inches. What does that mean? Well, that's how far apart the support beams, the joists, are under your floor. And 24 inches is
a pretty wide gap. So you're taking a weak material, particle board, and you're asking it to span this wide open space. It's a recipe for disaster. It's going to bend, it's going to flex, and that just makes it fall apart even faster.
All right, enough doom and gloom. We've talked a lot about the problem. Let's get to the good part, the solution. And I mean the right way to fix this, for good. Yeah, we're not talking about a patch job. We're talking about rebuilding this part of your home so it's actually stronger than it was the day it was built. So let's walk through the 7-step blueprint to take your floor from rotten to rock solid.
So here's the game plan, laid out nice and simple. It's a logical process. You start by tearing out all the bad stuff until you get to good, solid wood. Then you rebuild the frame itself, fixing the joists, adding more support, before you even dream of putting down the new floor. Now, we're just hitting the highlights here. As we noted on the site, you can find a super detailed step-by-step guide for all of this over on the Mobile Home Friend website. Okay, lean in for this one, because this is a huge pro tip. This is the step that separates the amateurs from the pros. Before you put that new sheet of plywood down, you run a thick bead of subfloor adhesive on top of every single floor joist.
This is the secret sauce, I'm telling you. It literally fuses the floor to the frame. What does that mean? No more squeaks. Ever. And the whole floor feels incredibly solid, like one single piece. Do not skip this. Seriously.
All right, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds like a ton of work, a ton of materials, which means a ton of money. So the big question is this repair actually worth it financially?
It's the question we always get asked. So let's switch gears and break down the numbers and show you why. From an investor's perspective, this repair absolutely pays for itself.
So you get a quote from a pro, and it's something like $5,000. And you get that immediate sticker shock, right? You think, whoa, is it really worth sinking $5,000 into this floor?
And I'm here to tell you the answer is 100%, unequivocally, yes. And the math doesn't lie.
Just look at this chart. It makes it so clear. See, here's the thing. A home with a rotten floor, banks won't touch it. They won't give a loan for it. So the only people who can buy your home are cash investors who are going to lowball you like crazy.
But the moment you spend that $5,000 and fix it right, the game completely changes. Now, anyone who needs a regular mortgage can buy your home. Your pool of buyers just exploded. And that can easily add $15,000 or even more to your final sale price. You do the math, that is a fantastic return on your money.
And if you're an investor, it gets even better. For tax purposes, this isn't just a repair. It's what's called a capital improvement. All that means is it adds to the value or the basis of your property. And that means you pay less in taxes when you eventually sell.
So what's the big takeaway here? Keep every single receipt for that plywood, for the screws, for the glue, all of it. Now this can get a little technical, so if you want the full breakdown of the tax advantages, we've got a whole post on it at mobilehomefriend.com.
At the end of the day, it really comes down to this. When you do this repair the right way, you're not just selling some new plywood. No, you're selling confidence. You're selling peace of mind. Imagine being able to hand a potential buyer a folder with all the receipts and say, the foundation of this home is now stronger than ever. In today's market, that is pure gold.
So we'll just leave you with this final thought. Look, I get it. It is so tempting to find a shortcut, to do a cheap and easy patch.
But your floor is the one place you just can't afford to cut corners. It doesn't matter if you're selling next month or living there for the next 20 years. Because the person who eventually finds that cheap repair, well, it might just be you.
Thanks for watching. For more guides and the full article on this topic, head over to mobilehomefriend.com.
And don't forget to check the links in the description below.
Thanks for watching. For more technical guides on this topic, click the link to see the in-depth article over at mobilehomefriend.com. There are many more informational dives into manufactured home topics to investigate and keep your project moving forward.